The topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV, where we bring you educational information from top local experts in the fields of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. Now sit back and listen to experts in family law, association law, hearing loss, business brokers, home care, along with many other topics. Now here are your hosts, Steve-O and Sophia.
Hey, good morning, Florida. Welcome to another Ask the Expert show where we bring you the top experts in the field of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. This is our last Monday of 2024. And I couldn't have had a better show to do, a better expert to come on than I'm telling you, one of my favorites. Let me introduce you. Been with us for a long time, attorney Debbie Baker. Good morning, attorney Baker.
See, you didn't just call me attorney today. Very good. Very good.
I got to tell you something. I'm like this little kid wanting to tell you something. And we always talk before the show, but I said, you know what? I'm going to wait until the show starts to tell you. We got a letter, an email from Miss Meyer, saying, I never miss one of Attorney Baker's shows. Thank you for making it the last Monday of each month so I can remember it. Would you please tell her to share more of her stories?
No kidding. Oh, more of my stories. Wow. Well, Ms. Meyer, I don't know how much more of the story there is to share. So here's my request for you, given that you're listening. Communicate with Steve and ask him a question. And then next month, he can ask me the question because I'll be happy to answer. Well, let's see. Well, actually, the topic for this month is actually, part of my story because I think I suggested to Steve we talk about things I've learned in the last year. Is that right, Steve?
Yes.
Okay. So impartial answer to your question, Ms. Meyer, is that I'm now at the 9.5 plus a little bit years since I graduated from law school. And it continues to be a walk of faith, which I probably say every time I tell my story.
Amen.
And God shows me, you really messed this up, Deb. Or you really did this well, Deb. Or, oh my gosh, Deb, look what you didn't know. And that you didn't know. So, and part of doing something you're passionate about is that you're always on the lookout. Well, you don't want to be in the "you really messed this up" Deb category, but it's really nice to be in. Oh, you know what you're talking about. That's really exciting. That's very, very exciting. And I really like learning what I didn't know. And all of us have been in learning experiences, and the law has to be one of those professions that's like that. In fact, probably any profession is like that, where somebody tells you something several times and it just doesn't click. And for all of you listening or watching, you can probably think of something. And that fourth person says something, and all of a sudden you go, in the world of My Fair Lady, for those of you, by George, she's got it. Or you just think, oh, all of a sudden I understand. They're wonderful epiphany moments, for want of a better word, because now you're locked into that learning and you're not going to forget it. And then you go back to the first person who told you, who's often your spouse or your best friend, and you go, well, I finally got it. Aren't you glad? And they go, thank goodness you finally got it. I was tired of telling you. But seriously, if you have a specific question, by all means, send it to Steve, and
you just have a fan club already. That's all.
And I'll be honored. I'll be honored to answer it.
Debbie, both Debbie and I have something major in common. We are both believers. And for you out there who are believers, know what that means. And so I have people come to me all the time. They'll go, "So does God talk to you?" And I said, "Never, ever has he spoken a word to me, but he gives me signs." And I got to tell you that what you've done with your life about becoming an attorney late in life, there are so many people that will say, "I wish I would have done this, but I missed my calling." And you are just the perfect example of someone who didn't miss their calling. And you could have gone into a better area of law going into estate planning.
Well,
so I know, because I tell your story all the time.
I wish all those people would call me Stephen. That would be really nice. So, anyway, no, I'm so honored. I'm so humbled and honored when people tell my story, because anything we've done, we kind of live inside, and we don't see inspiration. The encouragement, it can be for somebody else, because we're just living it. And it's always humbling. It's always humbling when somebody says, and I've said this before here, that I know two people, one person who went to law school because of my example.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Two or three people who did master's degrees because of my example of law school. And one person who finished their undergraduate degree because of my going to law school.
Amazing.
Really moving to tears, because you talk about us being believers. It's just following somebody's example and saying, well, if they can do it, I can do it. Not because I had any particular disability or drawback, but if somebody can decide at this particular point in their life that they can do this in the face of having a family and having a job and all that, then there's no reason why I can't. And that's always, that's just always moving. Right, Pip? Yes, right.
It's amazing. I've always said, if I can just touch one person a month, I'm happy. And, God gives us signs, and you coming on the show is definitely a sign that's going to touch somebody. Debbie, what do you do when you get a phone call and a person says, "I need a living will"?
I'm not sure the first thing I do is laugh. I might laugh. Maybe I chortle. Maybe it's silent. I would say the first question I ask is, "What has you say that?" and then they say, "I need something. I need a piece of paper that says who gets my house or who gets my car." So I said, so that's when I explained that's not a living will. That's a last will. And then we can have a conversation about the difference. Most people don't have any idea. They hear the word will, or they hear living will or whatever, and they just presume all these documents are the same. They're not. It's a very understandable misconception. There's no reason they should know this. And I don't think I've had a single person who's called me and asked me, said to me, "I need a living will," not appreciate that that's not what they're asking about. They do need a living will, and they need the last will in addition to that. The living will is for now. The last will is for after you pass. But the last will is the one that will give somebody the right to then distribute your assets. Any asset The will comes into play for any asset that is not beneficiary designated. You haven't already said who it goes to, or is not owned jointly with another person. So any asset, financial asset or whatever that you own by yourself becomes unintentionally open to a legal action called probate because you haven't said to whom you want it to go. And people don't understand that. And that really is sad because people very legitimately say, you know, you and Sophia say our house goes to our nephew. That's what your will says, but there's nothing else that says that. There's no document that transfers it to him. And so he winds up in probate spending thousands of dollars more than it could have possibly cost you to effectively dispose of it, for want of a better word, before you die. So the living will is for end of life decisions. Do you want life support? Do you want antibiotics? Do you want surgery? Yes, no. Do you want palliative care? You know, pain management? Yes, no. Your last will is my stamp collection goes to Joey. You know, my train collection goes to Susan. Those are easy because that's tangible. It's the money it's the financial stuff. IRAs, bank accounts, checking accounts, retirement accounts that bring in a lawyer and cost money and extend your
And
grief.
you try to keep your clients out of probate.
The goal is to keep them. The goal absolutely is to keep them out of probate. To do everything I can to set up something where the only thing somebody has to do when somebody dies is grieve. And maybe call the attorney, call me and say, Susan died on Saturday. We knew you'd want to know. Is there anything we're supposed to do? No. Thank you for letting me know. Keep me apprised of, like, you know, memorial arrangements. If I can come, I'd love to come. And right now, all you have to do is just go grieve. Just go grieve.
We just got our first text. What happens if you receive Social Security and you pass away? Can that go to your relatives?
Oh, what a great question. It goes to your, okay. Social Security, no, it doesn't go to relatives like children or anything like that. Social Security ends when you pass. What Social Security does do if you're married is if your surviving spouse was receiving Social Security that's less than what you were receiving, your surviving spouse can now get the higher amount.
Oh,
They don't get both amounts. So if you're receiving like $1,200 and your spouse is receiving $1,700, when you pass, your Social Security finishes. If you're receiving $1,700 and your spouse is receiving $1,200, then when you pass, your spouse is entitled to the $1,700. They don't give the spouse both amounts. So you lose the lower amount and you gain the higher amount.
okay.
But for relatives like children, no, Social Security, stops.
Doesn't continue on. Okay.
No, does not continue. No.
Now, what about if someone, I'm sure you get people who call who need a trust and you have to educate them too?
Right, because people often call with that, thinking they need a trust, and I ask them what has them think that, and for the most part, they don't need a trust. So for me, a trust is required, is essential. Required, like, you can go without it. It's essential when you have minor children, because minor children can't inherit money, whether that's $25,000 or $100,000, whatever. So you want something that would protect the distribution of the money until the children are old enough, in your opinion, to get it. You need a trust if you've got multi-millions of dollars, like 5-10 millions of dollars. And again, you don't want your children to get $2 million a piece when you die. I mean, that's a lot of money. You do trust if you've got somebody in your family. So I've had couples where one spouse has already been determined to be mentally not without capacity. So we did a trust only for his wife, so that when she passed, all of her assets would go to him inside a trust, because he was on government benefits and he couldn't have assets. So you have a trust for that. You have a trust if you have a special needs child or adult in your family who may need government benefits like insurance and stuff like that. The states vary. In Florida, somebody cannot have more than $2,000 in assets and more than like $3,000 in income. So you have to find a way to shelter very legitimately those funds so that that person can be taken care of and maintain their government assets. Most people I talk to, they don't need a trust. They need to do appropriate beneficiary designations. If they own a home, deed their home to whomever they want to have it. So let's say you and Sophia own a home, and you're giving it, when you pass, the second of you passes, you're giving it to your nephew. Like I said before, you're giving it to your nephew. That's great. If you're giving it to more than two people who you think might argue about, do we keep it or do we sell it, you could use a trust to put that in there, and then the trustee could figure out how to dispose of the home or how to buy out the one who wanted to sell, and so the other one can have it. But oftentimes people don't need a trust. They just hear it. They think it protects them from taxes. It doesn't protect them from taxes. It protects them from creditors. So if you have a trust and a creditor shows up, the funds being in the trust are not available. I don't think are available to them. But it's a great conversation, and if you're going to have peace of mind doing a trust, then we'll do it. I mean, if it's going to give you peace of mind to do it, you do it. And then we make the trust the beneficiary of all of your assets. But again, it's not always that you need a trust. And good for the people who call and ask.
Yeah, here's another text that just came in. Enjoying the show. I wonder what happens if you owe money to creditors and you pass away. Does that go to your wife or children?
Okay, that's a great question. So here's the thing: if you individually owe money to a creditor when you pass away, it's a debt to the estate. So your spouse or your children don't owe a penny. They don't owe anything for that debt. Now, if you have so I had a credit card. I have several credit cards. I still have one that has both my name on it and Art's name on it, because when he does business errands for me, he needs a credit card, so he uses it. I took his name off of my MasterCard account because I didn't want it to be, if I died before him, that he owed any of that money. Now, if there's money in the estate that does not have, so right now, all of my bank accounts, all of my IRAs, all of my investments have a beneficiary designation. None of that money is available to creditors. So if a person passes and all of their funds have a beneficiary designation, creditors cannot get at it. That debt gets forgiven or written off, or whatever a company would call it. The challenge is you have I have a client, $6,800 in a bank account without a beneficiary designation. And there were creditors. The creditors had to be paid. They had to be paid because the money could not go to the heirs until those debts were paid. Mm. Which is why it's so important for people, if you have a bank account and you've got $500 in it and you own it with your spouse, that you name a beneficiary, because yes, if one of you dies, the other owns the account. But when the two of you pass together and there's no beneficiary, that $500 doesn't belong to anybody till a court says so, and you're not going to get a probate done for less than $500. So I recommend that all of my clients and prospects, even the people who become clients and say everything's beneficiary designated, I said, please go back and check. Just to be sure, I'm not saying you're wrong, but go back and check and be sure you have a second level beneficiary. So again, using you and Sophia, you own your assets together, and it never occurred to you that maybe if the two of you were traveling together and God forbid something happens and you both die, you better have somebody's name on that account, either a name or your trust, but something on that account. So the financial institution just writes a check to whomever you named. And again, there's no reason people should know that. So the question about what happens to the debt is only owned by the estate. And if the estate has money, then the estate is liable to pay the debt. But your wife is not, your children are not, they're not. They're not.
Debbie, we've only have a few minutes left. Tell people, I really want people to contact you. The show replays on iHeart and YouTube like forever. And there's always, sometimes people don't think they need your service until later on. Tell people why they should call you.
I would say to what Steve said about later on, call now and find out if later on is here, or maybe there's something to wait for. Documents people need now, in my opinion, are powers of attorney and advance directives, which are your healthcare surrogate and living will, because you just never know about those things. You need them all. You need your will after you pass, and if you've done everything correctly, it's just a document. It'll never go anywhere. It's just a document. But call and speak to an attorney. Don't listen to your friends who said they waited and it worked out. Don't even listen to your friends who say you have to do it now. Call an attorney, find a referral, call me. I'm only licensed in Florida, so I can't give you legal counsel per se for anything north or west of Florida, but I can give you questions to ask somebody. And you call your local bar association and get a couple of referrals. Just do some research. You'll have greater peace of mind. And if you've got parents and they don't have plans, boy, you want to do the research for your parents, because you do not want to have to go through probate because your parents refused to plan. So, Steve, I told Steve there was drama over Christmas. Well, there wasn't really, but there's drama when a child says to the parent, you have to do this, and the parent says no. And every once in a while, the child can say, listen, if you don't want to do it for you, do it for me. And because I honestly just want to be sad when you die. I don't want to be angry at you because you didn't do this when you could have. And myself and my siblings are picking up pieces we didn't even have to touch. If you had just had the courage or the whatever to go ahead and do it. It's great time. It's a strange kind of thing. It's a great time of year to do it. It's probably too late to do anything signed in 2024, but it's not too late to get a conversation going and thoughts going, and having a conversation with your folks saying, listen, if you're not, just tell me where everything is so I can find it. And you can't force your folks who are committed to their privacy to share anything with you. And you can ask.
Debbie, how do people reach you?
Okay, you can call me at 813-586-1332, 813-586-1332. The website is London, like the city, londonbakerlaw.com. And my email address is debbaker@londonbakerlaw.com.
Debbie, first of all, I want to wish you and your family a very happy and healthy new year. our next show is next year. That sounds so strange, but Debbie's with us the last Monday at 9:00 every month, and we will be back again with you. Debbie, I am so blessed to have you as one of our experts, and you really touched my life.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
And we will see you next month.
Year.
Happy New Year to you.
Yeah, have a good one, Rebel. Talk to you soon. Thanks, guys. Bye.
She's wonderful. Attorney Debbie Baker. We're going to go to a short break. We'll be right back.
Thanks for tuning in today to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Tune in next week and every week to hear more from our experts on personal injury, insurance, air condition repairs, estate planning, Medicare, and many other topics in the areas of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. See you next week.